Good morning, children. Hope you all are in good spirit and in good health. Now, every one of us must be hoping and praying that after summer vacations, our school must be opening. But Almighty has some different plans, right? Now, let's get back to our virtual learning. Today, we are going to begin our session with first chapter of history, that is, how, when, and where. How, when, and where. These are the primary words that are associated with history or any past event. For example, how did that happen? Where did that happen? And where it happened. When we read history, we see a lot of dates. This is the reason history is considered as boring because it is difficult to remember so many dates. So, we must understand history is much more than dates. It is actually a comparison between past and present. What happened versus what it is now. And when we are curious enough to do the comparison, only then we start to find history interesting. And when we are curious, we ask questions, and sometimes these are actually historical questions. For example, when Indians started drinking tea? I know being an Indian, we consider tea an Indian thing because we have tea for every reason. But tea was originally introduced by Britishers in India, and when Indians were introduced with this drink, they were addicted to it. Britishers introduced tea in India for commercial purpose because Indian hills were stable for tea plantation. We can't fix one single date on which Britishers' rule was established in India or the national movement started. All these changes happened over a stretch of time. History associates with a line of dates because there was a time when history was an account of battles and big events. It was about rulers and their policies. Historians wrote about the year a king was crowned, the year he married, the year he had a child, the year he fought a particular war, the year he died, and the year the next ruler succeeded to the throne. For events such as these, specific dates can be determined. They also tell us how common man earned their livelihood, how kingdoms were formed, how new ideas and culture spread, and how society changed. Dates are not important on their own, but they become important as we focus on a particular set of events as important. For example, the history written by the British historians in India, the rule of each governor general was important. These histories begin with the rule of the first governor general, that is Warren Hastings, and ended with the last viceroy, Lord Mountbatten. All the dates in the history were somehow linked to the famous personality and their activities, their policies, and achievements. We have studied the history into different periods. James Mill was a Scottish economist and a political philosopher. He wrote a 3-volume book, A History of British India, which was published in 1817. In this book, Mill divided Indian history into 3 periods: Hindu, Muslim, and British. Mill believed that all Asian societies were at a lower level of civilization than European. According to Mill, before the British rule, Hindu and Muslim despots ruled the country. All that time, societies were dominated by religious intolerance, caste taboos, and superstitious practices. All this period before British rule was there were of darkness. Mill thought that only the British rule could civilize India. It represent all the forces of progress and civilization. Moving away from British classification, sometimes historians have divided Indian history into ancient, medieval, and modern periods. This division too has many problems. This periodization is borrowed from the West. Medieval period was a time when the features of modern society did not exist. In modern period, all the forces of modernity, that is, science, reason, democracy, liberty, and equality, have developed. But under the British rule, Indians did not have equality, freedom, or liberty, nor it was a period of economic growth or progress. Thus, many historians refers to this period as colonial. So, what is colonization? It is a process in which one country gains control over another country and thus bring changes in its political, economical, social, and cultural fields. British came to India and established their rule by defeating local Nawabs and Rajas. The Britishers established their control over the economy and society. They started collecting revenues to meet all their expenses. They produced the commercial crops which they needed for exports. Historians use different sources in writing about the last 250 years of Indian history. One such important source is the official records of the British administration. Every instruction, plan, policy decision, agreement of British administration were clearly written up. The Britishers believed that the act of writing is very necessary. It means preserving records of everything. Thus, all these documents were carefully written and preserved. To preserve the documents, they set up record rooms like the village Tehsildar office. Tehsildar office is he's the one person who is responsible of collecting taxes from a tehsil. They also preserve specialized institutions like archives and museums to preserve important documents. Here archives means a place where a collection of historical documents or records of government etc. are stored. In the early years of the 19th century, these documents were carefully copied out and written by calligraphists. A calligraphist is a person who is specialized in art of beautiful writing. But these official records only tell us what the official thought and what they wish to be preserved for the future. Official records do not tell us what other people in the country felt and what lay behind their actions. The British believed that a country had to be known thoroughly before it could be administered. Thus, detailed surveys were being conducted by them in the early 19th century. Revenue surveys were conducted in the villages to know the topography, which means the natural and the man-made physical features like the soil quality, the flora, the fauna, the local histories, and the cropping patterns. All these were necessary to know the method of administration for that region. Another way of doing survey is census. A population census is a process of collecting, compiling, analyzing demographic, social, cultural, and economic data relating to all the person in the country at a particular time to a 10 years interval. India is one of the very few countries in the world which has a proud history of holding census after every 10 years. The Indian census has a long history behind it. The earliest literature, Rig Veda, reveals that some kind of population count was maintained during 800 and 600 BC. Even during the reign of Mughal King Akbar,